seen this?
Yeah, it's familiar. I just can't seem to place it, though.
This text here? This is in archaic Trill?
What?
Fel is pointing at the sort of highlighted floating dot that's part of this constellation of, well, you assume some kind of holographic lights, whether they're holographic or whether they're what's producing them, you're not sure. But Fel is pointing to the one that you had noticed before on your first inspection with the slightly different script around it.
That's interesting. How would they know of the Trill here?
Yeah, we're a long way from the homeworld. What does this say?
She's sort of tilting her head because the whole shape of the display is kind of slowly rotating in space in the center of the room, but it's also, the text is kind of revolving around the point of light. She's sort of like trying to peer at it.
Come on, slow down. Okay, it basically says Golden Palace. It's not a direct translation though. This is pretty old stuff. Museum stuff.
But it definitely has something to do with the Trill.
Oh yeah, this is written in our alphabet. At least a version of it.
The captain will definitely want to hear about this.
Yeah.
She takes a few steps back looking at the whole kind of display.
I haven't spent a huge amount of time in stellar cartography, but if I remember the mission briefings, this kinda looks like the shape of the cluster, don't you think?
Your guess is as good as mine.
She just kind of carries on peering up at it.
She's gonna tap her comm badge.
Sure.
Murphy to Tenzing.
The captain's voice comes through.
Collins here. Go ahead, Murphy.
Sir, we found something quite interesting here in the chamber. From what Fel and I have surmised, I believe we found evidence of possible contact with the Trill.
The Trill? That's unexpected.
There's I can only describe as stellar cartography of some description.
Is it the Trill homeworld?
Not that you think. I mean, if this is a map of the cluster, then definitely not. The Trill homeworld is quite some distance from here.
Okay.
There's a planet here, or possibly a planet. It has a resemblance to the Trill alphabet, sir. And from what Fel is telling me, it's reading something like the Golden Palace?
Golden Palace? Not sure of the significance, but it's a hell of a discovery you've made. You said it looks like stellar cartography. If so, we ought to compare it to our own maps of the cluster.
That's what I was thinking, sir.
Good. Make sure you get everything thoroughly documented.
We also found the remains of possibly one of the inhabitants of the planet, sir. We have the doctor looking at it right now, but I think it probably warrants some investigation.
Wow, yeah, of course. Remains. Quite the treasure trove you found down there. Take all the time you need, of course, and any personnel that you think you might need. This is quite the discovery. Good job, Murphy. I'm looking forward to a full report.
Of course, sir. Murphy out.
I think while you're making this call, Fel is stood back and is again sort of, I don't think tricorder out. She's maybe got like a pad in her hand and is sort of looking up at the holographic display, and I think she's not like scanning it at all, but I think as you kind of finish your call, she holds out the pad and says,
So I got Che to send me down a basic overview of the cluster while you were talking to the captain, and yeah, I mean, this light show really does look like a representation of it.
And yeah, looking at the pad, it really does. It does look like floating in the air above you is a way more detailed map of the cluster than you guys have.
We should get this up to stellar trichography and possibly have a look to see if there's things that we can like add to ours, and maybe see if we can find where this Golden Palace is in relation to our scans.
So stepping out of the exact moment, then you got a few sort of things you can do at this point. Ireela has completed her initial assessment of the body in the next room. Whether you want to leave that down here or not is totally up to you. There's more scans can be done here. There's all of the documents that are on the shelves at the back of the chamber as well. So in terms of like how you want to spend time now, that's kind of what I'm asking. I mean, as a group. And you're not tied down to just doing one thing, getting a scan of the map and, sending it up to the ship and setting stellar cartography, comparing it and stuff. That's not going to lock you out of doing other things.
No. Definitely think having a look at what maybe killed the creature or person is kind of an idea. So maybe that goes back to the ship.
Yeah.
And then we can return it later when we're done.
Yeah.
To like re-intern it. And then maybe just documenting the documents and like archaeologists.
Yeah. I know, Johnny, you'd started sort of scanning through, you'd like literally scanning one of the books at one point. Is that kind of what you're thinking on that sort of thing of like?
Yeah, I think just like you said, logging everything, if we've got time, we can now start thoroughly documenting everything that's in this room and making sure we've got clear imagery for everything.
Yeah. I mean, the thing as well is like you'd already started the linguists on a project of like, we want to try and figure out what this alphabet is, like for the not for the Trill alphabet, but obviously they know what that is, but the new alien alphabet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So the more stuff you scan in here, like the more stuff they've got to go off of as well.
With, yeah.
So
they have a bigger codex to work from, and
yeah,
it should make it easier to decode and translate it into universal.
Yeah. I mean, and as well, I will say, now that you and Fella paid a bit of quite close attention to this point that's got the Trill text around it, it does also have some text in this other alphabet which seems to correspond. So this isn't a full Rosetta Stone, but it's more of a starting point than you had. That you're not translating it into English, but you can maybe translate a word or two into Trill.
Okay.
So that's not a full alphabet, but it's a start.
That gives the linguistic team something to like base off of as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully within the records that we found, we'll be able to have some answers answered.
Okay, so like documenting the stuff in here is going to take the longest, I think, if you're going for like full scans of all these documents kind of thing. It's not super slow, you've got tricorders, and this is not like you walked into like a bookshop today and decided to just photocopy every book and you're going to be in there forever,
Yeah.
It's a little quick. I mean, we can hand wave it away. It's a bit quicker to do this in 2379 than or whatever. What year are we in? 2378 than it is in 2025. But it's still going to take some time, I think, because this is quite a lot of varied documents. I think before I said it was like books, but I think really it's kind of a mixture of things here. There's definitely some stuff that is noticeably similar to just books, like I said, but there's also like some scrolls, and there are what looks to be kind of analogous to like pads, which are kind of powered down. So they may be something to take away and try and tinker with later.
I was thinking that we take like a selection of each thing.
Yeah.
Because the planet it's slowly going to be like burned.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to, there's nothing stopping you just emptying this place out. But it is up to you.
The archaeologist in me goes, no! Do not disturb everything.
That's totally fair.
Preserve history to a point.
Yeah.
But if it's going to save some time as well, we probably take like some of the bulkier books, a selection of the tablets, and some of the scrolls as well, so that we've like saved a selection of each kind of media.
Yeah.
And then scan as much as we can to a point that we have like a digital copy.
There's nothing stopping you like doing this here today, sealing the room back up again, and then if you need to come back, you can come back. I mean, it's not like you haven't like dug your way in here. You've opened a door that you can maybe close again, and this was a fairly sealed environment. It doesn't seem to have been damaged at all by the storms and things outside. And like you say, the planet is in the process of being changed away from its original ecosystem. However, like, provided the seals on this room hold, once it's sealed up again, it's we're not looking like it's going to be disappearing in a couple of years. This is going to be still here, pretty much untouched for a long time. And in fact, you still don't know how long it's been untouched for at this point.
Yeah, and we might not be the only expedition that comes here in the next few years. So
that's true. And I mean, at the moment, we've kind of almost, I mean, it's just at the moment, it's still just the Nelson, but they're, in the process of setting up. I mean, the Nelson is sort of like a not semi-permanent, it's a temporary kind of station more than anything at the moment. So,
yeah,
being this system is like the entry point into the cluster, at least for now, it sort of makes sense that like you haven't had to travel far to get here,
Because I imagine there's other research teams that have different interests and things as well. So there's probably a group of archaeologist researchers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Probably will branch off from we're just like the first ones here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll probably leave quite a few things and just try and get a broad range.
We could just say then that like you don't spend maybe too long scanning documents today then. You just get a selection, take some up to the ship for now, and earmark it as earmark it for future future investigations.
Yeah, that sounds good, yeah.
Rather than saying oh no, this is the only time we're going to be here, anyone's going to be here. It's like, well, no, that's not even the case. If anything, you could almost hand it off to the crew of the Nelson and say well, you're not going anywhere, you carry on. I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying,
we could offer it as an area of study kind of thing.
Yeah,
for further study.
Mark it as a site of importance and something to, a point of interest
definitely,
on the map,
yeah.
kind of thing.
But the body is kind of what killed.
Yes, that's a more immediate investigation. Yeah. Well, we can say then. Okay, so if you're just doing a little bit more of a kind of representative scan of a few different types of documents and taking some up, we could say that between. I mean, if you talk fell into helping or whatever, you've got a few people down here now. You could spend an hour or so taking scans and packing up some stuff into an equipment crates to be beamed back up. As far as the body goes, though, that can be moved kind of at any time. So yeah, you're able to take the body back to the ship to, I guess, perform a more sort of in-depth scan. I guess there's more. You've got more tools on the ship. You've got clean rooms and things. To properly kind of do an investigation without,
We'll leave the doctor to study that and do all the fun things.
Yeah.
Fun body things.
Well, okay. Well, maybe then what we say then. So Murphy, you and the rest of your team get to scanning. Maybe we follow Ireela back up to the ship with the body.
Okay.
We will. I think we'll sort of spin on time just a little bit, and we find you. I think. You've got kind of a isolation room, kind of biohazard area you could put it in, just in terms of keeping any infectious things is not what I want to say, but a kind of just in terms of isolating it from the rest of everywhere else, because you still this is the first individual of this species that's been discovered. Pretty confident in not carrying any known pathogens or anything at the moment. However, this is a body that we've just dug out of a mountain on a planet that we've never visited before, so probably best to be a little bit cautious.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you could go full biohazard containment on this if you wanted to. But it's sort of up to you how you want to approach this.
I don't think Ireela would be taking any massive precautions.
Right. Okay.
Because she's already been on the planet and been next to the body.
That's true.
It's going to affect her that easily. It already would have.
On the planet, you would have been in an environment suit, though, because of the lack of breathable atmosphere.
Yeah. Going to need to be a relatively gentle scan to start with. Mm-hmm. To make sure that the biology doesn't have some weird reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's no trouble. You've got the full tools of like the sick bay at your disposal here, which is sort of anything from like straight up physical examination to all kinds of like scans and x-rays and the equivalent of like MRIs and stuff. I mean, a lot of it's no longer a giant scanning machine like we have now, but it's like almost like you're kind of doing it with like just putting them on the regular biobed, and the computer has got scanning things it can do.
Yeah.
So it sort of is up to you what kind of things you want to be looking for, really. I guess that would be my question, is like, rather than like how do you want to do this, it's more kind of like what would you be looking for as you're doing a deeper investigation. What would the thinking be?
I would like to first thing is possibly, I suppose, a DNA sequence would be the most useful thing.
Yeah.
Good scans help us work out what sort of atmosphere they used for breathing.
Yeah, you could sort of run comparative tests to be like, I mean, you've got on file like the biology of thousands of humanoid species and stuff.
Yeah. I would like to check what sort of atmosphere they were used to using, because that will help us work out part of what's going on and how much the atmosphere might have changed from when they were living there to now. It'll also be really interesting if what they needed to breathe wasn't actually available at any point on the planet.
You could kind of compare like the lung cell structure and everything, and you'd be comparing what's remaining in the cells and like blood cells and things like that in the body, to be like, well, that's clearly very, very similar to like humans, or that's very, very similar to Vulcans or whatever, in terms of like what it would be taking in and needing. So I think that's totally a thing you can check. I think it probably is not going to be an instant thing. This would just be like the first in like a series of sort of things you can do. I don't think these are going to be... I think I'm going to need a check from you.
Yes, that's fine.
But I don't think this is going to be super hard, because this is kind of like you've got all the equipment for it. And this is a thing that you would be expected to know how to do in your position. As an exploration ship, this is not, it's not the most surprising thing to run into a new life form, and maybe the new life form is already dead. It's happened probably hundreds of times in Starfleet's history, sort of thing. So this is just like, oh, okay, we're running this set of tests.
Also, I would quite like the computer to be running similarities to other life forms that are on file. So we can find out whether they are completely unknown, or if they might have a shared ancestry at some point.
That's a good thought. Okay, I think actually we'll do this in a couple of different things, because we're taking the DNA sample first. So let's just have this. I think would be the equivalent of your essentially just taking a blood sample, except this is so I think for this, this is just going to be a reason medicine check from you. Okay. Difficulty 1, because this is just, bread and butter sort of thing. Okay. Critical success there. And a second success. So you got 2 points of momentum from that. Easily taking a biological sample from an unmoving corpse. And so that you're able to isolate DNA strand. I mean, again, this is not an instant thing here, because I think this is where it's obviously been decaying, and that DNA does break down over time and things, but not to the point where you're unable to get a complete strand after a little bit of a little bit of work. I mean, you've got, again, like I say, you've got the equipment to do this, and a lot of this is almost, I don't want to say automated, but it is a little bit sort of like, okay, you take the sample, you feed it into the computer, and then there's a little bit of going through the sample to find the DNA change that you need and everything. But yeah, you're able to log a complete DNA strand onto the system. I guess this would be the point. I think, would you be setting the computer running for like, okay, does this DNA match with anything? I think that makes sense, doesn't it, to sort of have that be the start of the process of comparing. So yeah, I think with that number of successes, I don't think I need you to do anything in terms of the computer check there. Other than sort of set it going. You don't get any immediate kind of pings, like it's not going like, ding, this is a human, it just looks weird, or anything like that. Yeah. But it has, you've now got this, you've got this species on file now, at least from this sample, and it's spending a little bit of time going through its databases. It's almost an instant check for like Federation species, and it doesn't immediately come back with any Federation species that this is, but it's going to take a little longer to go through the full database of species that have been encountered throughout history. I think while you're doing the other things, it's doing this, and maybe as you're prepping the scanner to do the other sort of imaging scans, it does return a sort of no matches found thing, at least on a DNA level.
Not surprising.
No.
It would have been weirder if there had been.
Yeah. That's not to say, though, that this isn't a species that's been encountered before, but not actually DNA sampled, so it still makes sense to go through with the other checks. So I think then for the deeper scans, this is going to be a little harder. This is going to be difficulty 2, again, reason medicine, and you can add a third dice for rolling with the ship systems for, I think this would be computers medicine, if somebody wants to roll that third die. 1, okay.
I think I was only meant to roll 1 die, wasn't I?
You were.
They're both a success.
So yeah, 3 successes, so that is a third point of momentum for you there. As I think you take a little bit of time here, this is a series of sort of tests and scans of like its kind of cell structure and just how its kind of respiratory system seems to work, or at least as much as you can kind of put together from the anatomy, which again it is it's broadly a humanoid shape, so it has lungs, it has trachea and everything. That is, it breathes like mostly it seems to breathe like humans do. Physiologically speaking, it's a little taller. I think I said it was about 7 foot tall. The limbs are quite thin, and the body itself is quite slim. The tests do come back that it seems that it would be breathing oxygen, so not too different of an atmosphere to what you're breathing on the ship anyway. I think the implication though is that it's picking up that it sort of needs oxygen's what it's going for. There's some markers in the blood and in the general sort of shape of the lung cells that do imply to your sort of practiced eye that it needs a slightly higher oxygen level than, or at least it's used to a slightly higher oxygen level than like Earth standard, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is definitely not what the current atmosphere of the planet is like.
Yes.
However, we do have an explanation for why the atmosphere of the planet is how it is anyway, which is that the star is, it's burned off the magnetosphere and the atmosphere is dwindling. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good reason.
Yeah.
Is there any way to tell the cause of death?
There is. I think I'm going to need another check off of you though. This is a harder one because this is kind of, I think, this is going to be difficulty 3 because you're kind of pulling together not only sort of some in-depth scans of kind of slightly more, I guess, esoteric sort of what you would guess as like, well, maybe I'll check this and I'll check this and I'll check this, and then you're kind of formulating a theory. rather than like a hard and fast, like you do the scan and the computer goes, you know, conclusion, shot to death or something like that, you know. This would be more like you're spending a little bit of time kind of going over varying factors with the body as it's presented to you and kind of coming up with like a best guess more than anything else.
Yeah.
So this, I think, would be difficulty 3, reason medicine again. As you're using the equipment, I will say if you wanted to have a computer's medicine as well.
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
Do I need to decide first whether I'm going to use momentum?
Yes, you do.
Okay. I'll use 1 point of momentum.
1 point, okay. You can roll 3d20 looking for 16 or under. If somebody else wants to roll for computer's medicine for the ship.
Nope.
Okay, so that's 1 success from the computer, 1 success from you. Does it roll into any of your... Just looking if it rolls into any of your focuses.
I don't think it does.
I mean, yeah. I think we'd used anthropology before, hadn't we? Sort of in a really broad sense, but I think this is a more specific thing here. Yeah, it's not really hazard awareness. That to me is more like not in a combat situation, but sort of kind of in a, you know.
Yeah. Going into new environments.
I don't think this fits any of your focuses, I'm afraid.
No, I don't think it does.
If it did, that would have bumped up your critical range from 1 to 5, and that 2 would have been worth 2 successes, but unfortunately not.
Oh well.
Yeah. However, I'm just looking at your sheet this is in front of me. You do have practice makes perfect as a talent.
That is true, yes.
And you have had a successful medical check in the scene. It says on the same type of ailment, but you're kind of, it's not really an ailment you're working other than like...
I'm trying to analyse the base biology of a new species.
I mean, it's all kind of the same activity, isn't it? Which would reduce the difficulty by 1, which would get you down to it.
It's your call.
Yeah, I'm just looking at your sheet now. I always forget to check everybody's talents. I mean...
I imagine at the very least I can rule out some of the obvious stuff.
Yes, I mean, even with the 2 successes you've gotten from the, you know, from Eden's 10 and the 2 that you got there, I will let you rule out some stuff. So at the very least you can do that.
Okay.
Depends if I'm sort of happy to let the practice makes perfect talent kick in here and drop the difficulty by 1 to difficulty 2.
Then I will absolutely take it.
Yeah, just because I feel like we always forget to use talents, don't we? And like, or not forget, but like they don't always come in. And like this always seems like, yeah.
We're better at remembering focuses than talent.
Yeah, I think you can immediately rule out any kind of like projectile weapons or anything like that. There's no kind of entry-exit wounds that you can see. I mean, this is the initial kind of checks that you're sort of doing. You don't see any kind of like scarring or burn marks or anything like that would then, you know, would lead more to like an energy weapon. So, and again, same thing with like any kind of puncture wounds and stuff. So, you can quite quickly rule out any kind of sort of weapons, I would say. Not having a full kind of profile for like a living member of this species means you can't fully rule out poisoning or malnutrition really straight away. I mean, malnutrition maybe a little bit, but you don't know what they're like when they're sort of alive and walking around healthy. You haven't really got a one to compare to. So you're not sure if like what you're seeing from the sort of cell scans and the blood samples and things, is that the normal levels for these things, give or take, not knowing exactly how long it's been dead as well. Although I will say that you can probably, with all of the sort of battery of tests that you're running, you can get a ballpark figure, you think, for how long it's been dead.
Yeah.
And it's within the last 140 years.
Oh.
No more than that. Yeah. So, not as ancient as sort of ancient a corpse as possible. It might have been there exactly 140 years, but you can say definitely no longer than that. You can't rule out old age.
Yep.
Your scans of the lungs do reveal some strain and some, I don't want to say scarring, but some damage, so you can't rule out asphyxiation, but you don't know if that again, this is one of those things that, like, you don't know if that's regular wear and tear over a lifetime, or whether you can't rule out that it was asphyxiation. That's all I can say. You know.
Yeah.
I think after spending some time, the two main things that might have happened is the two headline kind of possibilities are died of old age, malnutrition, or outside possibility of asphyxiation due to change in atmosphere.
Yeah. Okay.
That last one is obviously backed up by the fact that when you guys opened up the vault sort of doors, there wasn't a change in atmosphere, and you know, it wasn't a sealed environment inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there wasn't a blast of wind.
No. So you've got some options there, and you've got a range of how long it's been there. Probably, okay. Well, you could probably even say that, like, based on like how much it's kind of dried out and desiccated as well, it's been dead no more than 140 years, but probably no less than 40 years.
Okay.
This is over the course of some time. You're folding in all the data that you've got. Basically,
I wish we could date things that precisely.
Yeah. So yeah, you've got some stuff to go on here, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
I think through the course of it, you've gotten a series of imaging, things. So you now have, like, on file, like, for this species, at least with the proviso of, like, this is the only individual we found. You have a skeletal structure on file now. You have the one example of, like, here's what the cell structure's like. Here's what we think they breathe and stuff like this. Here's how, a general kind of thing of, like, with an example of one, here's what we think this species is like, which is how all of these files have to start at some point, kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of how you have to.
Yeah.
Start with new things.
Yeah. So that's kind of where you're at, I think. And so I think this is probably I would say it's a couple of hours of work for you, really.
Yeah. Trying to put all the different bits of information together is drawing conclusions from disparate information is always going to be the slowest point. Yeah,
and I think as well, this isn't a case of, like, we're in the field, I'll do one scan with a tricorder and then go, like, right, what does it tell me? This is like over the course of a couple of hours, you've got them on the med bed with all the scanning equipment around it and everything. You're making sure you're taking proper samples, and probably multiple times, just to make sure you're able to be as in-depth as you need to be here, without the sort of limitations of, like, here is our handheld scanner that we try and do everything with, kind of thing. Yeah.
I'd like to place the body in stable atmosphere that will not affect the natural mummification.
For sure.
To not cause damage to the body, and also have the body covered so they're not, like, on display for anyone that walks past.
You would have the facility there to do, essentially put it into, like, a sort of stasis, like, sort of thing, away from,
a morgue pod, but with heavily reduced atmospheric moisture.
Yes, no trouble at all to kind of put it in an environment where it would be warding off any further signs of, further decay or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. As we said, this is going to take a couple of hours of your time, so we could almost sort of say then, okay, we will spin on and say, like, an hour or two has passed for Murphy and Johnny down on the planet. You spent the time, I guess, kind of documenting both the holographic display in depth and just everything else that you sort of found in the chamber. I guess we could sort of spin on to say that like you spend an hour or two while Ireela's doing this, and it's kind of getting to the point where you're like, right, okay, let's call it a day down here, and you are making your way back up to the ship, I think.
Okay.
I think we'll join you as you are beamed back up to the ship.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a smart place to do it.
Safely back on the ship then, what would be your priorities at this point, do you think?
We've probably been on duty for quite a chunk of time.
I think this is probably now kind of mid-afternoon. It's like 3 p.m. maybe. Because this is the same day we had the morning meeting, went down, and you've obviously opened it up, spent a bit of time in there. It's maybe been 6 hours since you've been down to the planet, so you've had it's quite a time to be in an environment suit.
Yeah, and I think Murphy would probably want to update the captain on what they've found so far, or just at least give him a heads up on the progress of it.
Yep, no problem.
I think Johnny would just be looking for orders at this point. He's looking for whatever the next task is.
I think Murphy's probably just going to check all the equipment that they have, make sure put everything back, drop off the things with the right people, and hand over the stuff for the specific departments, I suppose. And then
you've got a few things to sort of pass on here. You've got the samples of the documents as well as all the scanned data, I suppose. We could sort of say that was being streamed up to the ship as we did it. But yeah, the physical things, I think it's probably you could drop those off with the linguistics people, and you also have the stellar cartography data to I guess you can compare it yourself, or you can again sort of hand that off and say, let me know what you find. I
don't think that's Johnny's skill set, really. He's probably going to be happy to hand off the info.
I think Murphy probably just asked them to write their reports for the day, and then they can go off duty. Enjoy writing your report with Baraka.
Yeah, I should have said that it's not just the two of you. I think all of the members of your original sort of away group have been back up with you. So that's Baraka, Lasiv, Bonj, and Lieutenant Kwiek. I think actually probably maybe if you're thinking of like operations are kind of packing up for the day, I think maybe any extra personnel that you brought down are probably in the process of also beaming back up at this point. So sealing the chamber back up down on the planet for now, and make everyone making their way back up to the ship.
Well done, everybody. Well done. That was good work today.
There's some serious implications from what we've found. If I'm understanding this right, indications of proto-Trill civilization?
Well, we'll see what the linguistics have to say. Hopefully they'll get more information from the documents that we've gathered.
With your permission, I'll deliver this to the relevant departments.
That's a good idea, Conought. And then just finish up your reports for today.
Aye, sir. I'll get right to it. And Johnny gathers up a kind of armful of bits and pieces of the things that they brought up.
I would say you've probably got it all in like an equipment case rather than just like all awkwardly holding armfuls of scrolls and things.
Yeah, so yeah, Johnny will take the equipment box and take that out of the room. And head off to the relevant departments to pass it off to people.
Yeah. I think Baraka and Lasiv have kind of taken their leave. Like you volunteered quite quickly to be the one to drop stuff off, and they're security people. They know when to keep the mouth shut and avoid a job, I think.
Baraka's just like, I am not an errand boy.
Yeah, I think that's probably, she's just like, Johnny Conought is brown-nosing yet again. I will not stoop to his level.
His willingness to carry things from place to place raised the man.
I think I will say then, Ray, where were you working? We said you were coordinating the flights and then sort of working with the data. Were you working from the bridge, or were you working from like flight control?
I think initially I was with the flight control team. And then once the data started coming in and it was reported stable, I would have gone up to stellar cartography. to essentially see how it's all coming together.
I don't know if that's really the place for like scan data from the planet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think stellar cartography has the biggest screen.
Biggest screen. Okay, fair enough. So, yeah, you've kind of as the flights are kind of progressing, the data starts streaming in. You've made your way down. I think at this point, at the point that this starts happening, is probably about the time. It's about concurrent with when the body has been found and Ireela and Fel are just heading down to the planet. If you know what I mean. That's kind of about where we're at this point in the day.
Okay.
If Ireela's finishing up her in-depth investigation and the others are coming back on board at about 3, we're probably at about 11 o'clock in the morning here.
Right.
Just to put it, I'm trying to just put things in context on a clock for everybody. So yeah, you're able to sort of, I think as head of sciences, you're able to kind of commandeer this, as you called it, the big screen in telecartography. As data starts coming back from the reconnaissance flights, a sort of grid by grid 3D sort of top-down representation of the seabed starts building itself.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as you know, the room is kind of like almost got like a kind of wraparound balconies in it. You're able to kind of walk around and look at from different points of view here.
Mm.
So as the flights kind of go and they're doing multiple passes, a sort of a kind of map grid sort of fills in with more detail on each pass.
Is it measuring out the contours of the slope of the seabed as it goes down?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's why it's in sort of 3D, and it's you're getting kind of like a 3D view of the entire seabed.
Right.
And now these are proper sensor scans as well, which I think we've already rolled for, haven't we?
Yes. Yeah, I think we did, yeah.
So I don't need you to do anything here. But yeah, you're able to manipulate and look at the data as you will. So what would you like to do?
First of all, I'll be looking for anything that stands out as not natural formation, anything that looks that it's made by material other than the natural sediment and the natural rock.
Okay.
Under the ocean.
Are you doing that visually, or are you... I would say you've got this kind of like... The main display that you're kind of looking at is like as if it's sort of like a 3D kind of photo collage almost.
Yeah.
However, you can add filters on top to be like, here are the life form readings, here is the scan for this, and you can go through and be like different material. You know, what I'm saying is like, are you visually just seeing like, can I see something, or are you going like, right, are there any concentrations of X, Y, Z, or you know what? Well, that's not a leading question. I just kind of want to know how you're doing this, that's all.
Initially, I'm looking at the whole thing as it comes in, and then as the scans start to finalise and fill out the area that's been scanned for each grid, I then start putting in the various filters. So initially, I'm doing a scan with my own eyes to look for anything, and then if I spot something, I will then put filters on to try and make it clearer.
Okay, all right. I think as with everything in this kind of day of the game, this isn't an instant process, because obviously they are flying real, you know, this isn't like an instant, like, here's our sudden scan of the whole thing.
Yeah. It's like dial-up internet.
Oh, it is a little bit. That's kind of what I was sort of picturing a little bit. Like it starts at low resolution, and then at the more flights go over it, the more detail is getting filled in.
Just line by line. Any minute now.
Well, it starts kind of pixely and gets better as it goes. Is what I'm sort of saying. I think to get all of the full scan results in is probably an hour or two. Mm-hmm. But you can like sort of start initial things right from the beginning. I think giving the whole grid a good once over is going to take you some time.
Before I rely on the computer, what can I see myself, sort of thing?
Yeah. I think I am probably going to need... Well, we've been doing insight security for, like, perception checks, haven't we? So I think we could probably stick with that, although...
Insight science?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you got a little bit of a practiced eye here. Yeah, I got to get insight science. I think this is going to be a trickier one, though, so maybe this would be difficulty 3.
Okie dokie.
Ooh, 8 and a 6. Well, that's 2 successes.
Wait.
I think you The best I can say is that you see some interesting structures that maybe will you earmark as like, I don't want to say structures as in immediately like, oh well, that's a building. I just mean you see some stuff that you can't immediately write off as like natural formations.
Yeah.
So some stuff maybe draws your eye, but it's not like you're looking at it and going, there, that's a building right there on this, or anything like that, Mm-hmm. There's just, I think some stuff catches your eye, I think is the best I can say with that.
Okay.
So that being said then, what are you looking at first, now that you've got the data?
Well, I'm going to using the computer, I'm going to filter by material composition.
Okay, can I get, I think, a reason science check from you then? And somebody can roll for computer science for the ship. So, this is difficulty 2, by the way. I think. Ray, you're looking for 17 or under, and I need a 16 or under for the ship.
Okay, Eden's rolled for the ship.
Okay, so it's one success from the ship.
Okay, I'm rolling now.
15 and 14. High rolls, but for you, that's still 2 successes.
Okay, nice.
With your ridiculously spec'd reason science rolls here. It's kind of your wheelhouse. Yeah, I think combined with like your initial look and finding like a couple of points of interest, sort of areas to focus on, you're able to, I think, maybe a little quicker than if you hadn't done that initial kind of look through. I don't want to say pinpoint, but you're able to kind of earmark like a few places on the seafloor actually that do have higher concentrations of I think you go for titanium first, maybe, because that's what you had found in the mineral deposit and what your scans showed that the thing that you encountered was kind of armored in.
Yeah. And
yeah, there are some, I'd call them hotspots, where it's like it's unlikely there's all natural deposits. I mean, there's some concentrations. There's definitely a larger concentration of it, of the sort of, I guess, what you'd categorized as a variety of like non-natural materials. It's probably, but I'm not going to make you roll for every single different mineral or whatever, unless you had a specific thought. But I
think mainly I'd be looking for anything of titanium in composition, anything concrete in construction, and there's another material in the Star Trek universe that I can't think of.
Geranium.
That's it. Geranium, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, ship hulls and stuff are made of geranium.
Yeah.
It is a highly processed alloy, though.
Being highly processed, it would stand out if there was anything down there.
Yeah, it's kind of it's more of a sort of, it's a slightly kind of, from our 2025 perspective, it's a fictional sci-fi thing. So we can hand wave that away as like it's a future material.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I will say I don't think you pick up any geranium. You definitely pick up a lot more kind of the titanium sort of concentrations, and that it's not the only material there. It's not like it's a giant pile of titanium. You're definitely picking up some plastics. And just general you're picking up what you could categorize as synthetic materials in a variety of concentrations in these sort of hotspots on the seafloor, and there is one larger hotspot than others, which is about 600 to 700 meters across.
Ooh.
All of these are like fully on the seafloor, and as you can zoom in on the kind of scan there is like seafloor, like what you would call like mud and rock, is sort of up. Right, they're not sitting on the seafloor, they are like built into the seafloor, if that makes sense.
Now that's interesting. It's like it's a part of the seafloor. I doubt that's natural. But was it on purpose?
Lieutenant Che is there as well, as you've sort of taken over his room here. He's kind of standing near you, and as you're kind of musing to yourself, and he says, kind of points to one. That one does have some symmetry to it, sir.
Indeed it does. You don't tend to get perfect symmetry like that from natural occurrence.
I don't know, sir. I do remember picking up seashells on the beach when I was a boy. Some of them were pretty symmetrical.
Point taken. But out this far, I'm going to hazard a guess that that's been done deliberately. It's interesting. On the creature that Baraka and I saw on the away mission, we got readings of titanium. Most likely the composition of the kind of armour it seemed to be clad in. We're definitely getting some rather large deposits of that exact same composition down towards the bottom of the sea floor. But this expanse here, and I'm pointing to the large area that came back through on the scans, I think that warrants a bit further investigation.
Yes, I'd say so, sir.
Well, I'm going to recalibrate the filters, Shay, and see if there's any biological data we can pinpoint from the scans.
Right to us, sir. Ready when you are.
Okay, filters reset. Programming in for organic tissue.
Okay, can I get another reason science check from you? Difficulty 2.
Yep.
That's 2 successes. You switch over to a kind of life form scan, and you are taken aback, I think, given how lifeless the rest of the planet seems, by quite how strong of a return you're getting from all across this seabed. There's some definite concentrations of it, just vague, unclassified life form readings, I would say. There's no way of knowing what it is.
Yeah.
Around these hotspots, and especially around the larger one. There is a vague, there is life form readings essentially throughout the sea, though, varying, sort of sizes and concentrations. But there's definitely quite a lot on the seabed area around these larger sort of hotspots of the titanium scans.
That's a lot of creatures. Definitely getting some more concentrated deposits.
It's like quite a population, sir.
Indeed. I'm thinking this is indication of one of two things. Either a colony of these creatures that are just traversing the waters, or it's an actual permanent habitat for them. I think we're going to have to take another approach if we want to find out more about those creatures. I'll compile this into a report. Right, I've taken up enough of your resources, Shay. I'll feed this data up to my console on the bridge, and I'll carry on from there.
Righto, sir. Okay, as you turn to leave, the display returns to sort of. I think they have a view of the current system you're in still at the moment, but there's work being done, and I think people haven't stopped work while you're doing this. They're still working on the side consoles and things. They've been sort of that you've just kind of gone like, I'm taking the main viewer for a bit, sort of thing.
Yeah, I imagine they're continuing to map what they can of the new space.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd said on a previous one that they, scans are continuing of the system that you're in, and like I think the longer they have to take scans, the more detailed their maps are going to be and things, and so that's kind of their day every day is to be like, right, what can we see from here,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So Ray, you're working on the bridge, I think, for a few hours. You're kind of putting together your report. You're at the sort of general science station. You've been kind of, I thinking fairly sort of engrossed in your report. There's a lot to go over here, and I think it wasn't like instant that you came up here anyway. You've only probably been up here an hour and a half or so when you hear the turbo lift door open and Murphy steps through.
Long day?
Not as long as yours from the sound of it, Murphy.
I've had an interesting day. So, I take it you're going in to see the captain?
Once I've compiled the last part of this report on the data we got from the shuttles, then yeah.
Conveniently enough, you've just finished.
Oh, and look at that.
Well, come with me and you'll find out.
Okay. Sounds a bit mysterious, but... Alright, lead the way.
Come in. The doors slide open. Captain is behind his desk. He's got a coffee and he's reading a pad. So he looks up as the pair of you step in. Rai, Murphy, please take a seat. gestures to a pair of chairs in front of the desk.
Captain, I have a report on the data we got from the shuttlecraft passovers of the oceanic floor.
Ah, good. Are you handing it over on like a pad, or what's the...
Yeah, well, so I've got the pad. I bring it out, and I tap away at it, and then hand it to the captain.
Thank you, Commander. I'll be sure to give it a thorough read. Give me the headlines, though. No trouble, I take it.
No problems at all. The scan data came through perfectly fine. We found a couple of interesting spots down there where there's a high concentration of titanium, which indicates, at least from what I'm thinking, we'll say man-made structures potentially down there. But we also discovered some rather large areas of organic material and living tissue, which I think is a colony site for more of the creature that I saw in the away mission.
What are you thinking? Some kind of settlement down there?
It's entirely possible. I don't believe it's a natural occurrence, so I think we are looking at a civilization down there, or possibly a travelling colony. We need to get closer somehow and get more accurate data.
Well, if that's the case, we will need to tread carefully.
Prime directive, absolutely.
We may have been given leeway to be a little loose with the directive here in the cluster, but apart from your accidental interaction on your away mission the other day, this is a classic case of us being able to see them and them not being able to see us, so seems standard operating procedure should apply.
Indeed.
A lot to think about at any rate. Well, thank you, Commander. I'll go over your report, and Commander Tallinn and I will discuss some options.
Aye, sir.
All right. Murphy, how did the rest of your information gathering expedition go? I trust Dr. Ireela was able to successfully bring the specimen back to the ship.
Yes, sir. The doctor managed to transport the body on board. She's conducting her own investigation as we speak.
Ah, good.
Stellar cartography has the recordings from the planet's surface. Fel is quite sure that this script is of Trill origin, or at least resembling. It did look familiar to me, sir, having spent some time with Rai and knowing a little bit about Trill. But yes, maybe we can pinpoint where this planet actually is in the cluster.
Right, this is the first you're hearing of this, by the way, of any kind of Trill script and things.
Yeah, Ray's just sort of sat there listening and looking at Murphy kind of with a face of, not seriously?
Murphy's just going to glance at it and go, yeah. We've taken a few selections of various documents from the site and tried to record as much as we can, but we'll probably leave it up to some of the more dedicated researchers if they want to go back down to the planet, sir.
Of course, yes. We'll log everything, and I'll update Starfleet about our progress here on the planet. Let them know what we've found so far. There's probably a xenoarchaeologist somewhere who's just about to have a real good day. As far as this Trill script, though, have you considered talking to Lady Ral about it? Might have some insights. No offense, Commander Rai, but she's been around even longer than you have.
Oh, none taken, sir. I mean, it's probably the best bet.
Yeah, perhaps you can help the linguistics team. We gathered some materials to help with the codex of cracking their language, so hopefully, with her help, we can get there faster, sir.
Worth asking her, at any rate.
I've got to say, I'm actually dumbfounded by what you're saying, Murphy. Trill script this far out?
Yeah, it was a surprise to me too. I wasn't expecting something familiar to pop up, but it's curious.
Very. I mean, I can't exactly say I'm the best scholar for my people's history, but I'm sure we would have learnt something about any exploration out this far into the galaxy, especially somewhere as uncharted as this.
Val did say that some of the script was similar to those that she'd seen in museums. So it may be older than we all think.
Perhaps the root language that what we have in all the museums kind of came from the sound of it. Because all language evolves over time, symbols, ways of scripting, it all changes. But if this is ancient or proto-Trill, that might have some implication for our natural history.
I would say she described it as archaic. It wasn't like she couldn't, and she was able to read it. So it wasn't like it was like if we were looking at sort of hieroglyphs or anything like that. It would be. I think this isn't like a bombshell. I think the equivalent would be like us looking at sort of Old English kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the language has definitely evolved to the point where like a lot of words don't look the same. You know, they're not the same as they were. You know, and words have like changed in over time and things like this and stuff.
Yeah,
but
the usage changes. And all
yeah. And even just how things are spelled and things, and you know, stuff like that. And there's stuff gets made redundant, stuff gets added and stuff. So no, that would be more my comparison than say like you're not looking at it going, well, that's a completely different alphabet. The alphabet is the same. It's just it's just an older version of the same language, if you know what I mean, rather than like. I don't want it to be like proto this or that sort of implies like
proto is probably the wrong word for me to use there.
I just wanted to clear that up before we go down a
it's old rather than ancient.
I think Ray is kind of letting his imagination run away with him, thinking that it might be an older perhaps perhaps it might turn out to be a root language that he didn't even know about. Because it's like, because for him, this is kind of like, well, we're in uncharted space. And to my knowledge, my people never came this far.
Yeah.
So to find something here, but yeah. So Ray sort of sits there for a second. With your permission, Captain, I'd like to be kept in the loop with what is discovered on this.
Of course, yes. I'll make sure you're updated.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Ancient Trill, wow.
I think I'm as intrigued as you are, Commander, and, well, who knows, if this comes to anything, we might be visiting this Golden Palace at some point in this expedition, if only to unravel the mystery. For now, though, conference with Lady Rao, I think, is the next step. See what she knows, if anything.
Sir.
Lieutenant Conought, Captain Collins.
Go ahead, Lieutenant. What's up?
Sir, we're picking up some unusual readings at the edge of the system. I would request your presence back on the bridge.
Captain sort of raises his eyebrows and gives the two of you a meaningful look. On our way. There in a second.
Tanar's on the con at the moment. Well, this might not be good.
Let's go.
Three of you step back onto the bridge. Collins takes his seat at the captain's chair. You see Tanar has moved over to the vacant science station. Ray, Tanar is a member of your team. They are a Kelpian who is the sort of assigned bridge officer for sciences for Beta Shift, which we are currently in. Okay, what are we looking at? So we're picking up what appears to be a micro-singularity at the edge of the system. I believe we're at a safe distance, but this is not a phenomena we have previously observed in this system, Captain. Micro-singularity. On screen. The view on the main screen switches to this area of the outer system. You can't see the singularity itself, but you can definitely see the effect that it's having. In this small area, there is an expanding gas cloud and debris ring, which is being whipped to incredible speeds around a central point, which, as you watch, collapses in on itself, scattering this debris and gas across a wide area. Captain stands up. Well, now that's interesting. Alright, that's going to do it for this episode. Unfortunately, due to events outside of our control, we will be having to miss our next scheduled release date, so the next chapter of Frontier will be going live in 4 weeks' time. That's on Thursday, April 24th. So we'll thank you in advance for your patience and hope you'll all join us for that. In the meantime, you can head to pretendingwithdice.com. There's links on there to all of our online presences, including our Discord server, Ko-Fi page, merch store, and much, much more. So yeah, for now, that's our show. We hope you all enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.